Alrighty guys, let's go ahead and get started with our notes for today. Today we're going to review fractions and operations with fractions. And these notes are online, but you can also just take notes on your own piece of paper. Our notes aren't super long today. So first, let's just go back to the basic of fractions and converting fractions to mixed numbers and vice versa. So that's what we're going to practice first. Convert into a mixed number or an improper fraction. So let's start with our first one. 19 over 2. Remember, with a fraction, this top part is called the numerator. The bottom we call the denominator. Okay, so because the numerator is greater than the denominator, this is an improper fraction, and we're going to change it to a mixed number by dividing. So just like it says here, that's what a fraction means, is to divide. Okay, so I'm going to divide 19 by 2. Well, 2 goes into 19 9 times. Okay, so that's the big number in front is 9. Okay, the denominator, we're not changing this problem at all. We're just changing what it looks like. So the denominator is still 2. Okay, so now how we get the top, 9 times 2 is 18. To make 19, though, you just add 1. Okay, so 19 over 2 is 9 1/2. Okay. Let's do that again over here on B. 13 over 4. Okay, so first we're going to divide. 13 divided by 4. 4 goes into 13 3 times. The denominator stays the same. 3 times 4 is 12. How much more do we need to make 13? We need 1. Okay, so 13 over 4 is 3 1/4 as a mixed number. Okay, now the bottom two here, 3 1/6, this is a mixed number, and we're going to change it to an improper fraction. Okay, so now we're going to go backwards. Notice how on the top two, the denominator always stayed the same as what I started with. So since this has a denominator of 6, the denominator will remain a 6. Now how you get the numerator is we're going to multiply. 3 times 6 is 18, plus 1 is 19. Okay, so 19 over 6 is equal to 3 1/6. Let's come over here and do this next one. Same thing, the denominator does not change. Still is a 3. To get the numerator, I'm going to multiply 3 times 5, which is 15, and add 2 to make 17. Okay, so that is how you convert mixed numbers to improper fractions and vice versa. All right, now let's get into some operations. Recall from way long ago in elementary school when you first learned about fractions, you can only add or subtract fractions if they have the same denominator. Okay, so that fills in those blanks on your notes. You can only add or subtract fractions if they have the same denominator. And remember, the denominator is the number in the bottom. Okay, so let's take a look at example E. We have 2/15 plus 3/15. Okay, notice how the denominators are already the same. That's great, because now we can just add the tops. 2 plus 3 is 5, and leave the denominator 15. So that is 5/15. Okay, now you can leave it like that. You can also divide both of these by 5 to reduce this fraction. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 15 divided by 5 is 3. Okay, so you want to simplify your fractions if you can. All right, let's try the next one. 7/10 plus 1/6. Okay, these do not have the same denominator, so We cannot just add like we did the last one. We're going to have to actually make these be the same denominator. Okay, so 10 and 6. Let's think of a common multiple that they share. A common multiple that they share is 60. So I'm going to change both of those denominators to 60. Okay. On the left side, this fraction, I change the 10 to 60 by multiplying by 6. Since I did that at the bottom, you're also going to have to do it to the top to make those equivalent fractions. And 6 times 7 is 42. Same thing over here on the right. How I changed this 6 to a 60 was I multiplied it by 10. So I do that to the top, and 1 times 10 is 10. Okay? So basically what I did to the bottom, multiplying by 6, I did to the top. On the left, on the right fraction, I multiplied the bottom by 10, so I'm going to multiply the top by 10. Now that I've got the same denominators, I can add the top. 42 plus 10 is 52, and keep the denominator of 60. Now, because both of these are even, we can divide both of these by 2 to reduce this down. 52 divided by 2, 26. 60 divided by 2 is 30. Now notice those are both even, so I'm going to keep dividing this by 2. 26 divided by 2 is 13. 30 divided by 2 is 15. Okay. Now I can't reduce that anymore. So 13 over 15 is where we're going to stop for that problem. Now let's do some subtracting. Okay, subtracting works the same way. You have to have the same denominators in order to subtract. And that's what these blanks were. We already filled these in, but I'll fill them in again on my notes. To add or subtract fractions, we have to have the same denominator. Okay, so on this example, 15 tenths minus 8 tenths. Since they both have the same denominator, we can subtract the top. 15 minus 8 is 7. Keep the denominator of 10. So 7 over 10 is your fraction. Next, what we're going to do is h here. H, notice how these both do not have the same denominator. One's 4, the other's 10. Those aren't the same. So we're going to need to make them be the same. So let's set this up. A common multiple between 4 and 10 is 40. So I'm going to change both of those denominators to be 40. Now, let's talk about this left fraction. How I change this from 4 to 40 is I multiplied the bottom by 10. So I'm going to do the same thing to the top. 10 times 3 is 30. Same thing with the right fraction. 10 multiplied by 4 is 40. So I'm multiplying the top by 4. And 3 times 4 is 12. Now that the denominators are the same, we can subtract the top. 30 minus 12 is 18. And keep the bottom the same of 40. Now, let's reduce that fraction because we can. I'm going to divide both of the top and the bottom by 2 to make 9 over 20. So that's how you add and subtract fractions. Just some review for you. Okay, guys, next operation we're going to go over is multiplying fractions. Multiplying fractions is pretty straightforward. All you do is multiply across. So we're going to take the numbers that are on the top and multiply them together, and then take the numbers that are on the bottom and multiply those together. So let's do the top. 1 times 4 is 4. So 4 is on the top. 3 times 5 is 15. 15 is on the bottom. And that's it. 4 over 15 does not reduce, so we are done with that fraction. Now this next one, example J, we have 10 sevenths times 5 twelfths. Again, I'm going to multiply the top. 10 times 5 is 50. 7 times 12 is 84. Okay. Now, something that is helpful when it comes to multiplying fractions, sometimes it's easier to simplify before you multiply. Okay, so what I mean by that, before we multiply, let's see if we can cross-simplify any of these fractions. So I'm going to do an example here. You guys can see what I mean by this. Cross-simplify means that you look to the numbers that are across from each other, like diagonally, and see if they have a common factor that you can reduce them by. So, for instance, 10 and 12. Those are both divisible by 2, so I'm going to divide both of those by 2. 10 divided by 2 is 5. 12 divided by 2 is 6. Okay? Now that made my number smaller, so this might be a little bit easier to work with. Let's see if 5 and 7. Well, 5 and 7 are both prime numbers, so they cannot be divided by anything but 1 in themselves, so I cannot cross-simplify 5 and 7. Now that I've simplified, I'm going to multiply. 5 times 5 is 25, so 25 is on the top. 7 times 6 is 42. This does not reduce. So 25 over 42 is our fraction. All right, let's try another one of those. 4 and 1/4 times 4/5. Okay, notice how 4 and 1/4, this is a mixed number. Okay, so before I multiply, I'm going to actually change that back to an improper fraction, like what we did at the start of our notes. Okay, so just to review, 4 is in the bottom. To get the top, I multiply and add. 4 times 4 is 16, plus 1 is 17, times 4 over 5. Okay. Now let's cross simplify. 4 and 4 are both divisible by 4, which I can make both of those a 1, and now multiply. 17 times 1 is 17. 1 times 5 is 5. And you can leave that as an improper fraction too. Okay, so that's how you multiply fractions. Just go straight across and see if you can cross simplify before you multiply. It makes things easier sometimes. All right, last operation, guys, is division. When you divide fractions, there's 3 simple steps to remember. Keep, change, and flip. Okay, so some people remember this K, C, and F. Keep, change, flip. So what I mean by that is, let's do an example so you guys can see what I mean. Keep means keep the first fraction. So I'm going to keep that first one 6 over 5. Change means I'm going to change this from division to multiplication. And flip means that I'm going to take this second fraction and just flip it over. So 4 over 3 is what I'm multiplying with now. Okay. Now multiplying fractions, we just did this. I'm going to first simplify. 6 and 3 are both divisible by 3. So 6 changes to 2 and 3 changes to 1. And now I'm going to multiply straight across. 2 times 4 is 8. 5 times 1 is 5. And that cannot reduce. So 8 over 5 is our fraction in the end. Now this last one, this one's a great one for you to try. So I'd like you to pause the video here. See if you can divide these 2 fractions using what we've just talked about and what we've just gone over. And then you can play the video back and see how you did. Okay, let's check and see how you did. First thing, this 1 and 1/2 is a mixed number, so I'm going to first change that to an improper fraction. Keep the denominator of 2, multiply and add. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3. Change this to multiplication, and flip the second fraction over. Now notice 3 is a diagonal from 2, and 3 is diagonal from 2. Those do not cross simplify, so I'm just going to go ahead and multiply these numbers together. 3 times 3 is 9. 2 times 2 is 4. So our fraction is 9 over 4. All right, guys, that's the end of your notes for today. Please take a look at the key I posted online to the notes, or if you need to go back in and play any of this video again, feel free to do so. Let me know, though, if you have any questions. Have a good day.